for 20 hours a week.
What is it?
More important.
Security for the temple.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just to organize it. They know you wouldn't be able to make it.
Already.
Already's always start on time. If everyone turns on their microphones, please. Okay, we're going to call this workshop to order. City Commission workshop of July 28th, 2025. It's 4 o'clock. Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Vice Mayor Pelagas,
Here.
Commissioner Carr,
Here.
Commissioner Colomos,
Here.
Commissioner Dembinski.
Here.
Thank you. So the purpose of today's workshop is to discuss our 2025 to 2026 budget. And we will be having a presentation from our Director of Finance, Lori Irwin.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Yes, bear with me as I get.
That time again.
It is that time. It goes by very quickly.
Wow, is that a new picture we have there? I love it. I don't remember seeing anything like that before. Who took that picture? Was it a drone or?
It actually came from a bunch of pictures that Nancy had done regarding, I believe, the whole city.
Okay, great.
That's nice.
So because of, you'll see the park study, I thought that this was appropriate.
Very nice.
Sorry about that. Actually, though, before we get into the budget, I want to take a few minutes to kind of discuss something that I've been working on for the last couple weeks. And I'm sure that you've been hearing about, whether it's talking to other colleagues, hearing it on the news, seeing it on social media, but DOGE. That's a big thing that's been out, and I've spent a lot of time getting numbers for the state. And back in, I believe, March, they did Executive Order 25-44, where the governor actually created the Department of Governmental Efficiency to, reduce government waste, to increase accountability, promote efficiency across all levels of government. Well, they were tasked with auditing local governments, reviewing state agency expenditures, and examining public colleges and universities. Well, we're not a college, we're not a university, but they are requesting information from us as a municipality regarding all of our revenues and all of our expenditures, and how those revenues actually pertain to each departmental expense. So now, in the legislative session, they did House Bill 7031, which actually passed a property tax study, which is, again, another big part of this, gathering the information of our revenues and our expenses, and then actually doing this study for property taxes, which impact every city directly. And this study is conducted by the Office of Economic and Demographic Research. The report is due November 1st of this year, so probably for the legislative session. In saying that, they've actually, Senate Bill 2502 was passed, expanding the governor's oversight of the Policy and Budget Division, and they actually will be assisting DOGE with gathering information regarding the municipalities, and they're doing comprehensive reviews of all of these cities. Diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, evidence of gross overspending, waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement, redundance of government functions, and they just passed as of July 1st that if we do not give this information within a set period of time, we can be fined $1,000.
A flat 1,000?
Flat 1,000, yeah. And due by January 13th, 2026. So again, right before your legislative session meets. So I just want to, bring this all about because in this budget, you'll see that as we get talking about our capital improvement plan, there's funding out there that we have not, we've left things unfunded because again, we're not sure what's going to happen going forward with ad valorem, with any of the revenues that we actually receive from the state. During these, the information that I had sent out regarding our revenue here a week ago, I could put you put everything against ad valorem so they don't take that, but then you're not putting things against your state revenues, your state revenue sharing, your communication taxes, your sales taxes. So, I believe that they're looking at all of that to see where they can possibly cut. So I just wanted to bring that out.
I have a couple questions on that, if you don't mind. Is there going to be well, first of all, I asked you this question before and you didn't know the answer, but you were going to check. Is every city, every municipality in Florida, or are we still?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. And was this brought about because they perceived that there was some cities, municipalities not using their funds effectively? You feel like that was the reason
I
behind
think
it?
it comes down from the federal government putting that in, and then they're doing that here also.
Is there going to be a special audit committee? So if we turn in our numbers, is there ever like a randomly audit coming along?
They could.
Okay, all right.
I don't foresee that,
But
but
maybe not in ours, but in some, there could preferably be.
I'm sure we've all heard things in the news about other cities, counties that they're going in and looking at as to what exactly, when all this information goes in, that they look at. I do not know.
And I think the last question that I have is, how much time would you say you and your staff have spent or anticipate spending on getting the numbers? I mean, just like a ballpark figure. It seems like this has taken you a lot of time. It's very detailed.
A week, actually, because, how do I put this? Trying to find out exactly what information that was wanted, any questions that were sent there, they just answered, yes, they were very vague, just send all your revenue, send all your expenses. They didn't go into specifics or, assist in setting anything up. So it was one of those where you're kind of going blindly.
Okay, was there a resource person or website or something you could go to if you did have questions?
You could send your questions to DOJ directly, and they answered, but it was a vague.
Yeah, you had to keep on peeling back till you got to what you needed. Okay, all right, that's my only question. Any other questions?
I do. I take it, depending on how these numbers turn out, it could affect any funding we get from the state in return, right? Any grants or?
Correct.
Okay.
That's why we have to play nice.
This is in a big part of what the governor wants to do towards eliminating property taxes. So if you saw last week, he appointed, and I can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Chief Financial Officer.
The new chief financial officer, who has also publicly stated he is kind of in lockstep with the governor on the elimination of property taxes. We don't know what that looks like, if they're going to propose, an amendment. Is it going to be just elimination for those who are homesteaded? So we'll be studying this intently as the information comes out from the state, but this study and these DOJ reports are a big piece of it. As Lori was alluding to, they made us allocate revenues towards specific departments, which we don't really do in the budget process. We have revenues that add up to one number, and then they, on the other side, we have the expenses that should add up to the same number for a balanced budget every year. We don't allocate property taxes directly to, say, public safety or public works. It's just a part of it,
But going forward, will you need to start doing that?
Well, that may be one of the things that they have us do going forward, and I'm not sure. Last Thursday night, I had a very interesting conversation with the county's finance director, who was, we were
Is that
kind of.
Ryan?
Ryan, yes. He was kind of asking me the same question: how did you allocate? And he said, that was an interesting thing for them to do as well. So I think, trying to read the tea leaves at the state level is, they're going to be looking for different things. Like Lori said, if, we say, oh, everything is ad valorem, then they're going to say, well, then you don't need the communication service tax or as much revenue sharing.
So everything that you answer have to say, what is the purpose of this question down the road, how, yeah.
Yes.
So, understandably, I'm sorry, it's gonna be a lot more work for you and your whole department on here, but, as I know we're here for the workshop, but I just wanna make sure on property tax, if there's anyone, that's asking you questions, whether as a resident, legislator, or anything, we all need to be on the same page to understand how important property tax is, not to only our city, but every city there is. I mean, it's just crucial, especially the part that worries me is they haven't said, oh, we're gonna reduce property tax, but instead we are going to do X. We don't know what that X is, so naturally, we're very, very worried about that. So, I'm sure, I think in Daytona Beach Shores, people realize how wonderful it is here, that life is better, all of the amenities, everything that they have here. But still, if somebody's coming here and saying, we can eliminate your property tax, I mean, there's other cities in Volusia County that I would be just terrified of if it came before them, so.
And if I'm looking at the pie chart correctly, we're gonna get basically 44% of the city's revenues from property tax. So, and that is concerning because, again, Daytona Beach Shores offers an incredible amount of services. And so I would be interested to see what the alternatives are if that is cut. And I know there might be different ways that might be done, maybe homestead or, not all property tax, but I think it's going to affect the shores significantly if that happens. So.
Especially if they put it to a vote, where they're saying if they're doing it, putting it on the ballot. So.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and thank you, Lori, for all the work that you put into this presentation.
So let's look at, now we can go into this next year, look at some of the key influencers into this budget. Infrastructure progressions. We're looking at wastewater infrastructure. That is going to be one of our largest, and we'll see projects that we are undertaking. And there's actually, I believe, 3 projects that go into that.
Before you go much further, do we have this slide in our package or not? No, we don't. Okay.
I can make sure everybody knows.
That's okay. And so when you're talking about key budget influencers, is this the same as our capital plan?
Yes,
Okay.
there's different things here. This
great,
takes into account your whole budget. Currently, your infrastructure is all your CIP major CIP that we're looking at, meaning your wastewater infrastructure upgrades, and then your public works facility plan, which that is where we just received the $900,000 from the state appropriation.
So on that, we received that, so now you're locked into doing something. I mean, we requested the money, now we received it, so you need to go ahead.
So,
yeah, okay.
Correct. So we're also, we're need studies. We've done your vulnerability assessment, which I know we've talked about. It's been a little long coming. We have our last workshop in August for that, and then hopefully once they get the data together, we can get something by the end of the year. I know that they're saying more like March of 2026, but again, they actually take care of all of Volusia County and other counties, so I do understand that. We also have listed our park study, which should be being presented in August, I believe, and that should take into account the workshops that were done and the surveys to see what it is that our residents would like to see here regarding our parks and recreation. And then we'll see that, that'll actually go forward into your CIP program. And then we have a new stormwater assessment that we have just recently applied for, that would work with the Volusia County, and Transform 386 funding should hopefully pay for that. And we'll see what the assessment is to see what we can do with our stormwater, or if there's anything we can do with our drainage for flooding here in the future.
So I had one question, and again, this, this isn't a very formal, this is our workshop, so any questions you have, this is the time to bring them out. So Kurt, my question is, you've been on the Stormwater Mitigation and Flooding Committee with me, and we're requiring that every city turns in, what are you doing with your plan, making sure that you're not taking your stormwater and putting it over to Fort Orange or whatever you're doing. So this stormwater assessment, after we do that, is that the plan we can put into the county and they can put on that GIS map so that?
What they're gonna do, basically, what has been proposed is to, before I say it wrong, can I pull up Stuart?
Yes.
He wrote our scope of work that we're asking them to fund.
Okay.
He's better at this.
But this will take care of the part that we owe the county.
That is more of the vulnerability assessment.
That is.
This is a straight stormwater, looking at what systems are here to move water during events.
Okay. And that's what we want to know with that committee we're on. How are you going to move the water and where is it going to go? Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Stuart Cruz, Commissioners for the record. The administrator is absolutely correct. What will happen is they will look at all the data, they will look at our site, the geography, all the different parameters that they could look at for a stormwater master plan, and they will create a model to determine where flooding areas are within the city of Liberty Shores, and they'll also look at anecdotal reports and data and things of that nature. And the end product will be a series of different deliverables, one of which will be projects that could address different hotspots, if you will, within the city as well.
Thank you. Can I step back on one thing? With us being on that committee, we hear about all the just horrendous things that have happened. We came out very good in Daytona Beach Shores, unless you're one of the 6 homes that flooded. Explain that to me, was that really not the city's issue? Was that something to do with the county, Stu? Can you?
There are different theories, Madam Mayor, Commission. One of them is after the excessive rainfall that we received after Milton. Remember, Milton happened right after Helene. And so the ground was essentially saturated, the river was essentially flooded and above normal tides. And so what happened was, essentially, there wasn't anywhere for the water to go, not in the ground nor in the river, because the level of the river was higher than the outlets or the outfalls where the stormwater was coming. So there were a few places within the city that unfortunately experienced some flooding events.
Okay. And is that something that we'll look at specifically?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, great, thank you. I'm sorry, Lori.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. I guess, Chris, if you could put Control Tab on each one of these computers, that would help. Thank you. We've all expected to do it.
Brings us to our public safety investments, which we only have the Emergency Operations Center Phase 1 design currently. 2 fire trucks this year, which one went into service, I believe. Today.
We got to see it at the concert. We weren't allowed to touch, but we got to see it on Friday night.
And with the emergency operations, the Phase 1, that is the design, which actually just came from a bid last week, which hopefully we can get, our committee will get together this week and decide on a vendor for that and bring that to you. And also with that emergency operations center, that is a FEMA grant that we received for that, so they'll pay for 75% of that. And once, depending on how that assessment, it's an assessment and architecture, and once that's done, that will go to Phase 2, which is the building, which again, we tentatively have it
have to thank you very much because I know you're a very integral part of getting grants. So for you to apply for that FEMA grant and for us to get that, thank you very much for the time and effort you put into that.
Then we have no reductions in services, which is a great thing. You know, our residents, they expect life to be better here, and our employees make sure life is better here.
See, that's what I'm so worried about that property tax. I mean, our citizens, again, they're willing to pay for the high level of service that we have, and they tell all of us about how happy they are with our public works, with our public safety, with the community center, everything that we have here, and I don't want a reduction of that. We want to keep life better on the shores, so.
And then we have finally our ongoing salary obligations and personnel incentives. Again, I'd like to thank you for this current fiscal year that you actually had voted and approved for raises, several raises for our employees to bring them at levels, to get quality help, to have our employees be here and want to be a part of us and stay with us. And I can tell, you know, myself that we see that. We have a few open positions, but other than a couple, we're all full, and everybody seems to be here and has been here now for a while, so thank you very much. Okay, Chris, what'd you got? You know my- Sorry.
You panicked.
Well, don't you panic right now. So when you look at this, the citywide total budget, yes, is $105 million. You'll see here in the next slide, that's a matter of our capital fund and grants coming in and moving into another fund. So it's transparency for it's just the flow of how these dollars go, and you see that. And you'll see that here in a moment. You can see the general fund is actually $23.7 million, and that's using a millage rate that we currently have of 4.5880 mils. That is 3.03% over what the rollback of 4.4529 mils is. Now the rollback is the same dollar figure as you got the previous year because of market values increasing or decreasing. That's what that rollback rate is. So that's where us remaining at the current rate is actually a tax increase of 3%. You know,
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Not because of the millage rate, but because the assessed values went up because of the
Correct.
property appraiser's assessment. Okay, yes. Things we can't control.
correct.
All right.
And who set that 4.5? Is that what you're proposing to us? And, okay.
That is what we're
Okay,
proposing.
okay, and we can look into that based on, you know, I was very, very surprised with the benefits and the employee salaries, that it was about $450,000 more. So that's something we can discuss, and go over it with me one more time, but today we could set something higher. You can always go higher until September.
Correct.
Explain that to me one more
Today, we're
time.
going to set the millage rate. Now, whatever we set that at, we can always go lower,
Not higher.
but we cannot go higher.
Okay. And this is another stupid question, but people ask me this all the time. Is the general fund the same as the reserves?
No.
How much is our reserve fund?
Our reserve fund, actually, her and I were discussing this today, because there's so many different aspects to the
Sewer.
reserve fund. Because what you have is you have monies put in there for the current year budget is in there. We haven't done done all of our calculations for the end of the year, but you've got, we have road tax, so you have that money that we've collected over the years. Those are restricted funds that are in there. There is contraband funds that we have that are also restricted that are in there. So currently, when we looked at everything, it's like 15 million, and that includes the money that has been transferred, so the $1 million for the fire truck because we have to take into account any money that we take out of reserves throughout the year has to be taken out of that.
I guess the ultimate question they asked me, and I don't know the answer to this, how many months of reserves do you have? I mean, that seems to be, the question I get if I'm,
Oh, that you don't have to worry about.
okay.
We have a fund balance policy that states that we need 50% of whatever ad valorem tax is. So we don't want to get rid of ad valorem tax, but, which would be about $5 million, which we have more than that.
Okay, all right, great.
So,
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
and as you can see here, that what we're proposing at the 4.5880 mils is actually providing almost $400,000 in additional income. But you'll see here as we go on where we saved money, that's where we're accounting for those salaries. And it also includes, we always put $100,000 into the Economic Development Fund. The capital fund budget for the general fund is $4.4 million. The enterprise fund, which is a sewer fund, this is, where the numbers go high, it's almost $51 million. But you'll see here in the next slides how that's determined between grants, loans, because we have grants that pay off, you have to take a loan out, the grant pays the loan out. And then we have the sewer impact budget. Again, that is very small. This is just for maybe new construction that's tying into our sewer system. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart. And so we don't budget much for that because we don't have a lot of that. And what we do have, we actually pay out to the city of Port Orange because they actually process our sewer. And then the sewer fund capital fund budget, you can see here is $26 million. We will be moving over to the capital fund.
Do we have this slide?
No, I will give all of these to you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where, these are just the revenues and some of the transfers that you'll see. And you can see as there's transfers in fund balance coming in and debt proceeds. And you can see that general fund is $23.7 million. And we have money coming into the capital improvement fund of $3.6 million. And then we're also using reserves, capital fund reserves of $780,000 to do $4.4 million for capital improvement in the general fund. Now, the sewer fund, which is your enterprise fund, you can see here that total sources of $50.9 million. What we have is the intergovernmental of $26 million. Those are grants. And then we have your charges for services of $4.6 million. And then you have your debt proceeds of $20 million. So that's that loan we have to get. And what happens is everything nets. These are your expenditures, and that's all we're doing, is we're showing all of the money coming in and then where it's going. And that's where it looks like it's so much. As you can see here, over in the far lane there, that's 24 million, 24.9 million. Those are all of the funds for the project.
And it's shown in this way because this is the actual trim advertisement that we have to put in the newspaper every year. So to me, you're basically doubling the values of everything because you have to show it as revenue in the main fund, and then because you're showing it as an expense because it's going out to the capital fund, but then you show it as revenue again in the capital fund and an expense in the capital fund, so you're accounting for it twice. That's why it's 105,000 or 105 million, because it's accounted for twice. But this is the state's form. Maybe not exactly, but that's how the state requires us to. You'll see it every year in the budget. advertisement that we have to do that says, you know, whether we're doing a tax increase or not, there's two separate advertisements that go in. And this is the form. A little convoluted, but it's the state form.
Madam Mayor, am I supposed to press a button and ask a question?
No, just.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. We're not doing that here during the workshop. Go ahead.
So Lori, the debt services, is that the interest on the difference between spending the money through getting a loan and then having the government give you back the money in the grant?
What has happened, the grant that we're receiving is a principal forgiveness grant. So what happens is we have to take a loan out,
Right.
yeah, and then
They
the
pay you
grant
back.
pays it back.
And the
With
difference
every-
between the two is that debt service? You have an interest expense, or do they pay you the interest too?
They don't, but hopefully everything's supposed to go within 30
Quick.
days.
Ah, okay.
And does that traditionally happen?
We'll find out.
We have yet to find out, that'll be this current year, but I know, from others.
You're talking about the 900,000, because we've had other
There's
grants.
14.5 million.
Oh, okay.
And then we just have applied and should know more in the end of August for another such of 12.25 million.
Is that for sewer as well?
Correct.
So that interest expense is not a major part of the expenditure budget? Okay, that's all I need to know, thank you.
It'd be nice just to net it, but then you wouldn't see it.
Right. Okay.
Some of the highlights we have here, this current year's budget versus next year's, you can see there is a decrease of like $300,000. The tax rate is the same. Our CPI, as you can see, is down. It was 3.21 last year versus 1.9 this year, so things are pretty stable. You can see our capital expenditure in the general fund, we had $6.2 million worth of capital expenditures last year. We actually have $3.6 million, and we'll discuss that more later, this next year. Total personal costs, to arrive at this figure, they're right around the same, but if I went through using all the grants and all of that in there, it really skewed it and said that it was like 4%, just because it changes the total dollar figure, but.
Do we still have that money? Are you still buying us treasury bonds and laddering them?
Yes, we are.
All right, and that's,
We'll continue to do that, and even with the
how are the rates on those right now?
capital fund, we will do that where we see we can, depending on the maturities and when we need the actual cash flow.
And how are the rates on those right now?
They're still right around like 4.2%.
And I'm sure most of you know, that was when Commissioner Mel Lindauer was on here. That was one of his suggestions. And, someday I'd like you to sit down and let us know how much interest we've earned on that. It was such a great suggestion that he had. Thank you very much for taking up on that. Mel, thank you for suggesting it.
You'll see health insurance costs this year increased we have two plans, one increased 6% and the other one 12.3%. Again, we'll see that here shortly. Operational costs just increased 1.5%. That's probably just due to the cost of things. We're looking at our just value, our market value for the city here in our property. Last year, we actually were at $2.8 billion. Now we're at just under 2.8, so we lost 1.5% on our market value this last year.
What does that mean? What homes?
We got a lot of homes flooded.
Well, I know that sale price has a lot to do with it. So I know a lot of condos, whether they're selling for less, and you'll see here in a moment that the price difference between a single-family home and a condo, the condos are less than single
Am I
family.
looking at it correctly, and I don't have my glasses on? Is it Daytona Beach Shores and Ponce Inlet that are two coastal communities, were the only one that were at a decrease? Am I seeing that correctly?
You seen it right?
You are, right.
So our home values in both of those locations were the only ones in the whole county that went down?
Correct.
But I think that's a,
Condos. That makes sense.
but because of the hurricanes and all that damage, so, yeah.
I'm sure have a lot to do with that. You'll also see later on that our homestead percentage went down.
Homesteaded properties?
Correct. So the ones that are selling.
Keep this up 1 second, I just want to see, so Daytona went up, and the land, were those the two highest, or, I guess Lake Helen too?
Oakville, Lake Helen.
Pearson. Yeah, Pearson, of all places.
Land.
It's condominiums. You see Holly Hill is only at 1%. I was talking with their manager the other day. They have the big Marina Grande condo there, and their values went down significantly, and that's why they're only at 1%. They didn't go negative, but it's a lot of it, like New Smyrna you see is a little bit lower. They have a large number of condos as well. I can't explain DeBerry, but the others that have the condos, like Ponce, I think that is the driving factor in that. But this is just value, not taxable value.
Okay.
But I mean, all of the hurricane damage we had on our Volusia beaches, I think the shores had 90% of that damage, I think, right, from Ian and Nicole?
So even though that was in 22 and, 22 was it? 22, we're seeing this now, like 3 years later?
Yes. It took from the 2008 real estate market, where that came down, we just, right before Ian and Nicole hit, got back to our levels, same property value levels since then. So this doesn't take
All right, well,
long.
this is an interesting slide, thank you.
And this, I just wanted to, so you can see a visual of where our just values went for the last 10 years. From 1.6 billion to 2.8 billion in 10 years. Here is current proposed and rollback rates for all of our 60 municipalities. Oak Hill, I do not have a proposed rate for, so but you can see we're still in the bottom 20, centile. And this is going with the 4.5880 mils. This is usually where we're at.
And again, DeBerry's on the bottom, time after time after time, but did someone say to me that's because of a power plant?
Technically,
Oh, two power plants, okay. And you said no employees, yeah.
They don't, they contract everything.
I think they have 7 employees, if I remember correctly.
They can contract everything. Here's a millage rate history for the last 10 years. The gray line is their total millage, and you can see that goes down, and where it goes down there in the 2021, 22, that's where the debt, we paid off the debt. But our rates have been pretty, our ad valorem rate. This is the impact of a tax increase of 4.5880 mils on our single-family home and our condominium. And you can see here we have 456 parcels, single-family homes, and 5,824 condos. And the average, let's see, taxable value for the single family is $382,648 versus for a condo of $298,000. big difference. So at the current rate that we're proposing, 4.5880 mils, the average single-family home would pay $1,755.59 per year, an increase of $51.70 or 14 cents a day.
Sorry, Lori, I'm looking at this, and I don't know when the right time to talk about it, what is, so when you said about, you know, we had that, you know, employees' benefits and salaries and everything that went up, and looking at this, do you have a thing, like right now, it was at 4.5888 or something like that? Say if we would even, you know, for right now, because we could increase it a little bit now, but always go lower if we decide to at the budget. Say something like a 4.88, how much, you know, would, or you have
Very
some?
next line.
Oh, wow, okay, all right, so,
So this is what I believe you're asking for. And the very bottom line is your rollback rate. And it shows then the darker green highlighted is what we're proposing of the 4.5880. And you can see that that would equate to $301,280. But if you, depending, I put in a 4.6, a 4.65, 4.7 mils, and you can see the percent rollback, over rollback, and the actual additional, annual additional revenue, right down to the daily increase.
okay, so I think people more, when they do their budget, I want to say monthly. So if we went to a 4.65, I can't read that.
So if you went to 4.65, yeah.
It'd be $5 a month. Okay.
Can I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Oh, absolutely. I want to hear from everyone on this one.
You said that we have $26 million in reserves.
No.
Tell me that number again. I mean, it's not to be exact, but
Oh, it could be.
I'm sorry.
13.2
We
million.
have $13.2 million in reserves, and you said.
Unrestricted.
Unrestricted, and you said that that would cover us for, we need about $5 million a year to cover if there was no ad valorem taxes, is that what I heard?
That's our fund balance policy.
That's our
is to
part.
keep
Right. From what I understand, the state, the governor has said that cities are banking too much money. And that they have so much money in reserves because they just keep taking from the taxpayers and they don't spend it. And that's why they want to think about either reducing or knocking out property taxes. Am I correct? I just want to point out that the more attention cities attract with how much money they have in savings, I guess you could say, which, you know, nothing could ever be too much. You never know what's going to happen. But we could be setting ourselves up for, the cities themselves could be setting themselves up for damage from the state government. And that's what the sense that I got from reading about what the governor and his staff has said, that they want to reduce our taxes. And so I'm not saying the mayor's suggesting going any higher, but I would be very nervous about, unless we had a very good reason to spend money, to raising any more than what we already have. I'm not talking about rollback, I'm talking about where you're at now.
In that
Which
amount.
seems to be your balanced budget at this point. In other words, do we need to put more in unrestricted reserves? And this would be a question for Kurt also, as well as you, Laura.
And I want to hear everyone on that too. I just, again, worry that if something does happen and we have to, you know, again, if there's another hurricane, anything like that, is that enough to go by? And it really concerned me when I saw how much the salaries went up and different things like an unforeseen, you know, needing another fire truck or something like that. No, I would never, you know, want to go up substantially. And if we, you know, propose something higher now, we could always go back in September. And Mark, I'm looking to you too, when you were the president of our HOA, I know the proposed was, what, $25 a month? But as we see now, everything, you wanted it to go up 50. a month. And as it turns out, with everything we're seeing, the increasing cost, we really needed that 50 opposed to the 25 that they wanted. Am I quoting the numbers correctly?
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that, you know, and I'm relying on you, to let us know too. I wouldn't think if you went up a tiny bit that it would send a red flag. As you see, we are still in the bottom quarter of what we're at, so.
And that depends on what you want to do in the way of capital improvements.
See, so right now, go back over with me too. So did you tell us that you think the Public Works is going to be about 2.5, 2.6 million, and we got 900,000? Are those the correct numbers?
Correct.
So,
And that's just right now. You know, we haven't even gone out to bid, done anything, so we don't know exactly what that number is.
I think the capital improvements is the one that, you know, kind of gets to me, the St. Kit. I think at one time we thought it was going to be, you know, closer to 200, and now it's 300, just, but again, I don't want this big padded reserve either, so I'm just really torn. That's why I want to hear. Chris, tell me how you feel about.
Actually, I would not want to increase it above the 4.5880. I understand the reasoning to do that anticipation that the state may get rid of property taxes. But on the other hand, I don't agree with the state for punishing cities that are fiscally responsible either, because as the property value showed, we are way different than most cities in the country because, you know, we've got hurricanes to deal with and our property values have actually have gone down because of it. So I think the shores, Ponce Inlet, cities like ours who are susceptible to these types of natural disasters, we have a responsibility to be fiscally responsible and to gather as much reserves as we can. So I understand the reasoning for doing that, but I just do not feel comfortable about going up.
What would you said about gathering as much reserves as we can?
What I'm saying is the 13.2, I don't think we should be penalized for that. But again, I don't feel comfortable raising it. I understand somebody might want to do that in anticipation that property taxes might be cut out, but I would prefer to keep it at 4.5880 at this point.
Vice Mayor?
You know, Commissioner Dembinski has a really good point. You don't know how what we do here is going to affect what we may get or not get from the state. If you continue to build reserves and they see that, then you go for a grant, they say, well, you really don't need it, you got plenty of money, and all of a sudden you start getting rejected. Do we have a significant percentage from the state, or is it mostly federal, the grants?
900,000 was from the state.
It's passed down through the state.
So the federal goes to the state, and
Correct.
does the state have the prerogative to not give it to you if you've got it from the federal? Okay, so it's just, so the bottom line is you don't get a lot of money from the state for grants with grant revenues.
Was the 900,000 just from the state?
That's state
The state,
appropriation.
yeah, the 900,000 we
Not
got
all
for
of it
public
goes
works.
from, it's passed through, like the FEMA grants, the one we're having that is, it's through the actual, it goes through DEP, but that's a federal grant that comes down.
So rather than me ask these particular questions because I'm naive, you're the one who's in that industry and you're the one who does this on a regular basis. Do you think that if we have more in reserves, it may affect our abilities to get these grants? Do you think there's any subjectiveness to it? Or is it a matter of filling out the money, excuse me, the application and showing the need for the project and then you get it?
It's more of showing the need for the
Okay,
project.
okay. And they wouldn't, you have never been criticized in the past, oh, you've got plenty of millions in reserve, you don't need million, we'll give you 750,000. You haven't had that? Okay, so interesting. So I'm thinking the way you are, Commissioner Dembinski, but I too think about, you know, what happens if you have one wild storm and it starts taking out all of the city-owned property, and then we have to rebuild, and of course insurance monies are in there, but then you have to come down with a deductible, and a lot of times you have to do it yourself, because who knows how soon you're going to get your insurance money, as a lot of the residents have been dealing with for now the past several years and still haven't gotten their money. So you have to have that cash ready. So I agree with some people, maybe tweak it, I might be agreeable to tweak it up to, let's say, round it out to 4.6 or 4.65. So it's not a significant increase for the taxpayer.
On a monthly basis. Well, let me ask you this question, Lori. If it was increased, would it actually sit in reserve, or we would be able to do, you talked about these a lot of capital projects who wanted, one of the things I want to look at, and I have gotten overwhelming support that people say, when are we going to buy Bank of America? When are we going to buy Bank of America? That's probably pretty much out of the question, or is that something, I mean, so that wouldn't sit in reserves if you're going to do something like that. That would go to either capital projects or doing something like that.
So looking at these, and pardon me, you can see you're looking at $27,000 from 4.5880 to 4.6.
Wait, I'm sorry, I don't see that number.
The increase in the additional
Yeah.
revenue, it's
You're
in
not
the
looking at hundreds or millions of dollars.
18,000.
fifth column from the left, so it doesn't have that significant of an impact.
So.
Oh, so that's all the, okay,
So, Lori.
$301,800.
okay.
So why did you come up with this 4.58 if you could have come up with 4.8?
Because it's the rate that we had in the past. And so we always, when we're doing the budget, we're always looking at, okay, can we use rollback? Or can we use what we currently have?
And this is, as we all know, this is a tax increase. This will be
Yes,
published
yes,
as a
3%
tax increase.
increase.
Yeah, it
So
would
if we go
be
to
the
4.8, it's not just a 3% tax increase, it's a 8% tax increase, or
Make the
a
number.
5.5 or a 3.
A little under
It
8.
is, at all points, it is a tax increase, one way or the other. And because we're not going to roll back. I don't think anybody here wants to go to roll back. So, again, your proposal covers everything that you need to cover for next year's budget.
Correct.
That's all. I'm just curious, I'm, you know, the difference in raising it is tiny, I understand that. But the impression is that it's a tax increase, no matter what.
And your budget proposal incorporates contingencies.
Yes, within reason.
Okay, good, thank you.
So the budget proposal will cover the remaining outstanding on the public works?
No.
Wait, say that again, what does that mean?
So you'll see in the budget, once we get into the capital and improvement plan, that we have incorporated the difference in what we're estimating the total project to be.
So our cost is gonna be about, if it stayed the same, is about 1.7 million?
Yes, and that has been incorporated into, that was one of the transfers that you're seeing to the capital budget. But what we've done is, we looked at things and we moved where maybe they needed a new vehicle, or there's another project that they might be buying Bank of America. You know, those are some things that are not incorporated into the budget currently.
Okay, and I have not had my conversations yet with the Parks and Recs. I don't know, is there any capital budget, and you don't have to tell me right now since it, is there any capital plan that might add money that we would be needed based on the recommendation of that park survey?
Yes, we need funding for that, because we do not know what that master plan is going to come back with. So we can't budget for that, not knowing what is in there and what yourselves and the residents would like.
Okay. One last question, you probably don't know the answer to this. So we paid off that bond, was it 3 years early or 5 years early? The 1.7 mil? We did that a couple of years ago. How many? Okay.
I believe it was 3 years.
Okay, 3 years ago. So people saved money then because we had the money in reserves, we took it out and paid that off. So would is this 4.58 putting that back up to when they have that 1.7 or not? No. Okay, so it wasn't
Can you
even.
go back to that slide, Lori?
Yeah, this one right here, you can see the blue line, that is just your ad valorem. On the bottom, the red, that is your debt service. So that's where the gray is on the very top line. That's the total of the two.
Okay.
So if you look at that as a combined number, in the fiscal year 21-22, their total tax contribution to the city dropped by 1.7 mils. Now, they had voted on, obviously, that payment for the undergrounding of the utilities, but what everybody was paying was like 6.78 in that last year when they paid that extra millage. So they actually received quite a large reduction in what they were paying.
Any other questions or comments on it? If there's any other questions that we have of anyone here, so even if we went to the 4.6, it only would equate to, what we say, $28,000 to the city. Is that
Pretty much.
what we said?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
This is just showing that we're, very reliant on the residential, which is 85%.
And that's why a property tax would help us, so, hurt us so drastically.
This is the revenue summary for the budget. You can see there that ad valorem accounts for 44% of the budget revenue. Then you have your transfers from your fund balance, that's at 12%. Your business tax there is 4.9%. Charges for services are 8.6%. That's one of those things we don't charge, that's mainly your permit fees, your building franchise permits, those are 4.9. So we're not charging for those services.
So was the biggest increase we had this year, I see the dollar amount, but was it percentage amount too, and it might not even be on here, benefits and salaries? Was that the biggest increase we had year over year?
For expenses, that's usually other than our CIP.
Okay.
Here are your expenditures by department. You see public safety is our largest at 38%.
And again, too, this is, you came before us and asked for these increases. And I think we all agree here, our most valuable assets in the city is our employees, which, we don't mind spending that money at all because we get the quality employees. That's what makes our city better. I'm just wondering, it is, because that's increased, do we need to increase anything else? But as everyone else has said here, if you have enough money in the budget, capital plans are the ones that I'm worried about. When people come along and say, I want our parks increased, we definitely need that in public works, because we're paying for equipment that we have to put outside that's getting rusty because of the salt air and all that, so we definitely need that. Okay.
Here's just a breakdown I'll show you. As you can see, a lot of our departments actually cut back. The public safety there for $1.6 million. That has to do with a lease and GASB. It's an accounting thing. GASB 87, what happens is we have to, if we have a capital lease, we have to take those payments over, and it's a 5-year lease, bring it back. And so then we do, it's a revenue and expense. They net. It's an accounting, and we have to show it.
How did legislative go down? We haven't changed the salary since.
No, those are more with probably a marketing.
Or isn't it actuals? Actuals?
Is that the chamber?
Oh, yeah, the chamber.
Okay. Oh, okay, great, thank you. Okay, and everyone probably know, I don't know if we announced it yet, but, we are no longer going to have the chamber in Daytona Beach Shores. So thank you, Sherry. That's exactly what the amount is.
See, we work together.
Yes,
Here's where your personnel and your benefits. The increase was in merit raises. They ranged anywhere between 2% and 3.64%. We also, this year for the first time, we budgeted a hurricane.
Wow.
In hopes that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, maybe if you did that, then, okay.
That's our hope. But we've had them, and they're quite expensive. So,
That's pretty funny. Only one. If we get two, we're
just one.
in a lot of trouble.
That's it.
Now, Lori, can I clarify one thing? The city commission is not included in any of those merit raises, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we did not vote on a increase in commission salaries, correct?
Correct.
And just for the record, I would not do that anyway. I don't think anybody is on this commission for a salary, but considering, you know, the fiscal issues that we have to deal with, I wouldn't think it would be prudent, so I just wanted to clarify that.
And was it 2017, so it's actually been 8 years?
And because it was.
Yeah, October 2017, I believe, was the last time the commission salary was changed, which none of the current sitting commission were here in October of 17.
You can see here our health insurance. We have two health insurance plans, a Florida Healthcare Plan and a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. Florida Healthcare Plan increased 6%, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield increased 12.3%. So to lower that increase to the city, to the citizens, what we have planned on doing is increasing the cost share to our employees. So Blue Cross Blue Shield, which would be like your premium or insurance plan, proposing charging the employee $25 per paycheck, so it's biweekly. And as you can see, employee and child, 110, employee and spouse, 145, family, $160. And then with the Florida Healthcare Plan, they're only at 6%, and we're staying with the employee free. You can see that the price is not different between the employee and child, employee, spouse, and family, like the Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's because Florida Healthcare Plan charges us one tier for employee. Anything above the employee, it's either employee or basically others.
And going out in the market, I know people that say they pay 6 or 7. I don't know if it's still called Obama plan or whatever it was. So, I mean, I want to make sure that we're being fair to our employees. Is this a pretty comparable rate?
Yes, it is. We actually did a study of all the, cities that we actually could get to answer, and it is still very comparable.
Okay,
or
great.
below.
Okay, anyway, all right, thank you.
Now we're going into the enterprise fund, so is there anything on the general fund before we get started on the enterprise fund?
Any other last questions on that?
You'll see here that the budget went from 23 million to the 50.9 million, and you'll see that's due to the capital projects that are going on. And you can see there that capital expenditures is $28.3 million. Our total personnel costs here, 4%. Health insurance is the same as with the general fund, and they'll have the same thing, the increases to the employees. Operational costs actually went down to 28%. And these accounts, these are just sewer accounts, because this is only our sewer, our enterprise fund, because it can make money. So last year we had 1,002 accounts. This year you had 1,010. So that's new people hooking to the electric, whether it's a septic to sewer project that somebody did, because there are still here, especially in the county portion, people, residents that actually are on septic tanks. I myself can't get in. Here is the breakdown of the enterprise fund revenue. You can see 84.6% of that, it's all grants for the projects. And 15% is charges for services. your expenditures, you can again see where it's that transfer and the debt service. So you're looking at what, 92% of it for that debt service, and that transfers to your capital. Capital Improvement Fund. This is for the general fund. Actually, I think this is for all funds for fiscal year 25 to 30, so this is for the next 5 years. And you can see that we have $41 million in grants.
Anticipated, or we know that we have?
Some are anticipated. That in your agenda, there's an actual breakdown of the ones that are pending still. You can also see here that there's 15 million in unfunded. And we're using sewer revenues, we're using fuel tax revenues. Those are for any of the roads that we do. You can see we have 2.5 million in reserves in the capital fund. So what happens is the money that goes over to the capital fund, if that project doesn't get done, it just stays there. We will invest it until that project is taken care of. And these are your expenditures for the next 5 years that we're hoping to do. What you can see, there's general improvements. There's the sewer system improvements of 33.8 million. You can see sewer vehicles and equipment, 620,000. Leisure services, those are mainly your parks and recs, $957,000. Facility renewals and replacement, 17.9 million.
What amendment changes did we have to make to the budget this past year that unforeseen? So did we have to amend to buy that fire truck? What amendment did we
Yes,
add? Can you give me the amount on that?
Let's see. I can't give you the exact amount right
Okay.
now. It was just over $2 million.
That we didn't anticipate.
And amendments this year since the budget was passed last year. You can see this is for the general fund for the current year. You can see there's 29% unfunded, but they're not in the budget at all. And you'll see in your listing in your capital improvement list that was in your agenda, they actually have in there where we're thinking the funding's coming from, or if it's unfunded. So there are projects that staff has stated that needs to be done at some point in the next 5 years, and whether the funding's there or not.
And how much of it is unfunded?
So there's $2 million for this current fiscal year. These are the expenditures you can see for this current fiscal year in the capital improvement fund. There's a sewer improvement of $24.3 million. And this is just for this next fiscal year, 25-26. Facility renewal and replacement, $5.5 million. The listing is in your agenda, and I can pull it up if you'd like. Here are some of the projects actually listed. You'll see in the general improvement fund in your information technology, there's some replacement, battery backup, tagging, virtual replacement. For public safety in their vehicle and equipment replacement, there's 5 vehicles here, but they're all from the current fiscal year. They're just not going to be here in time. So that's something that was funded this current year.
Okay. Lori, did I hear something about at the public safety, we might need to do either a partial or a complete renovation of the air conditioning there?
That is correct.
Okay, is that already figured in this budget?
It is figured in the capital improvement plan, we have pushed it further in advance, a couple of years down the line.
do
The
that?
estimate is $1.3 million. We've got $100,000 built in for upgrades, repairs to it currently.
And why aren't we taking the money out of reserves to do that?
You can, if that is what the commission would like to do.
I mean,
To balance, that's where we have to look at things and to balance based on the millage rate that we're going to set and the current estimates for revenue. You know, we had to look at things to see what could be funded this year.
and you couldn't see that that could be funded. Was that a little bit because of the public works or just the way the budget was this year?
Well, because of the public works, that was total funded in this current budget. So that's $1.7 million, $1.6 million.
What's that for, Lori? I'm sorry, I missed that.
The $1.6 million is for the public works expansion.
Okay. And you intend to do that this budget year, next budget year?
Correct.
25, okay. And I know the air conditioning system in the public safety building is apparently shot or not working very well. So is it the city's opinion that it can last another year, or should we be seriously thinking about getting on with it now before it gets worse and they don't have, they're sending their employees home, civilians home once a week? I don't want to put somebody on the spot, but that system is a huge system, and I know we have sent employees home because it's 100 degrees in there at some point. So I'm just curious.
I was told that the $100,000 could help to, you know, maintain it.
A Band-Aid fix?
It would be a Band-Aid fix, but I think what we have talked about is looking at maybe there's some other funding opportunities for rehabbing a grant or a legislative ask or something like that to do that. I mean, the system, as far as I know, is functioning today. You know, it may not tomorrow, but I don't want to.
You know, to Commissioner Dubinsky's, you know, that we don't want them in 100-degree
Correct.
temperature. So. I'm sorry, I didn't want
Oh, no. The other thing we're looking at is because of that EOC design and everything, because that's adding to that building. So how that would change that building or adhere to that building, whether new systems would work together or to do something totally for the whole building, that's something, you know, we don't know. Maybe when we get an architect and they can go through everything, they will know that. That'll definitely be one of those questions that is asked of them. We have some paving and storm drains to do, nothing major there. Here's your facility renewals and replacements, your emergency operations center, $450,000.
Tell me what that is again.
That's for the cost of, the estimated cost for the design and assessment design for the Public Safety Emergency Operations Center.
And 75% of that is grant funded.
Correct. You'll see their security upgrades, shutters, some upgrades to stairwell, some minor things. There's your public works facility building expansion with the state appropriation.
Of 900,000 instead of.
Well, we budgeted $1 million in this year, and then the other piece of it is it will be in next year's budget. We're not going to complete that project within one budget year.
And then some things there for your public safety. Now, the property that's sitting there for $1.9 million is It's your BOA, but that is something.
That is what, I'm sorry.
That's what your,
Bank.
the BOA, Bank of America, but that is not funded in this budget. So if that was something that the commission feels they would like to do, that would have to be added to the budget.
I have one question, Mayor.
Yes.
The City Emergency Operations Center, is that on where the current gym is located? They're gonna do it?
That's the tentative thought, but I think a big piece will come from that needs assessment that will be done out of the 450,000. They're gonna do the needs assessment and then design, and they'll kind of tell us what is the best thing for us to do.
But is that also gonna include some type of a sleeping quarters and cooking quarters? Some type of a kitchen, is that correct on that?
It'll be based on a needs assessment.
Okay.
Here is your leisure services, just, the dog park, water fountain, your ADA dune walkover at St. Kitts. Just some basic stuff here, some generator, which was approved for the community center, which is funded in part by a grant. Sewer, there's generators, replacement vehicles, and then the actual big project, that ongoing project with the sewer lines and station rehabilitation.
The 150 and the one, I'm sorry, is the 150 and the 180 funded or not?
The sewer fund is a different fund, and that, yes, that is funded. And they're listed in your agenda packet, but if you'd like me to pull them up, I can.
Anyone want her to pull them? They are in the package if we want to go down. Can you tell me why the legal went down 4,600? How did that happen? Thank you, Stephanie, for reducing your, no.
Unicode.
Unicode, okay. What does that mean?
We were,
We recodified.
Okay.
I'll let Sherry answer it.
The way our any new ordinance is codified into our huge code.
Uh-huh.
In the past, every other year, we would ask them to send us a printed version of it.
Okay.
And it was costing between $5,000 to $6,000 every year. They've gone to a new system, and they no longer charge for that.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So I should say
Pass that on-
it's
Yeah,
smaller. It's
please
smaller.
pass that on to Becky.
It's a smaller charge from them.
So any questions regarding general fund, sewer fund, capital improvement fund?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
I know that and I don't remember the millage rate, but I think it was 4.5 maybe. And
4.588.
If we went up to the 4.6, did you say monthly it would be like an increase of $5 a month?
Yeah, $5 a month instead of 3, 4. Yeah, go back to that. Was it 30 cents more? No. Right there.
It doesn't sound like much, but I know when I talk to people out in the community, anything is too much. And that's where I'm torn with it, because $5 is $5, but I don't know, all it gets us is 28,000.
No, if you went to the 4.65, it would get us how much?
You're looking at 128,000.
So it was the 4.6 mark that would only get you the 28.
4.65.
And I know that feeling too. There is some people that say that, and then on the other hand, I don't know if you talk to these people, Mark, but we had several people after we reduced it to 1.7 that said, we're used to paying that. We want we want life to be better. We want everything, all the services we want.
Yeah.
Just keep the money, because we're happy with everything you do. So it is hard. I'm very torn. No, I don't want to raise anything. I think if you go from, the 4.588 to 4.6, we're talking 30 cents a month more between the two.
And we haven't raised it in a while. It's just that the valuation of the properties have increased, which gets you a little bit more and more. So, I mean, we've done the right thing for years.
For years. I just want to make sure, I mean, you guys are the experts, you know, again, the capital ones are the ones that are really giving me a little bit of heartache. Do we want to do them? And if we want to do them, where are we going to get the funding to doing it? So, it's hard, I mean, I'm open to either one of these. If you feel like that the people that you've talked to, I haven't had anyone say that to me about, I want it lowered, I want this and that. I haven't talked to those people. I wouldn't do it for 4.6. I mean, to be getting, you know, $28,000, yes, so that doesn't do a lot for me. To me, if we were gonna do anything, it would have to be at the 4.6. But if you feel like people would have heartache over it and not see the value, and the people that are saying, when are we buying Bank of America, that's probably not gonna happen, I would think, if we don't increase a little bit, so. You know, so now's our time to decide. So, Stefan, can you tell us, I mean, which one of these millage rates do you feel comfortable with?
Talking to me?
Yes, I'm gonna ask everybody.
I absolutely would go by what the staff recommended, which is to keep the same
Okay.
as we did last year. If we wanted to buy Bank America, we wanted to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, if we wanted to buy Bank America, or if we wanted to get stuck putting a new air conditioning system in public safety, or if we decide to crash another fire truck, that money will come out of reserves, am I correct?
Correct.
So there's no way we could budget for that. We budgeted another $2 million, and you said, well, this is for buying Bank America. Well, the Bank America price just went well over $2 million. I mean, come on. So, no, I would not vote for anything more than what the staff has recommended.
4.588, okay. And Mark, give us your feeling on it.
Well, and I would love to see us buy the Bank of America, and it's gonna be a continuation of the park system. So we do have the money for it.
Tell me again about which funds are the unrestricted, so we have 13 million that we would take it out of. Is that correct?
And of that 13 million, we have a fund balance policy, and we have to reserve half of our ad valorem. So if your ad valorem's $10 million, that's $5 million that has to stay there, which would bring you to $8 million.
Wasn't there also a grant from the county? We needed to do the park study in order to get a grant from the county?
The ECHO.
So now that we'll be doing this, this should be coming out in.
We will apply. We apply for every grant we possibly can.
We were turned down last time, Mark, because ECHO stands for whatever it said. It didn't have one or two aspects in there. So we're hoping with the study that we can qualify, but there's no guarantee that we would get that.
Fair enough.
Again, you don't want to put money in a budget for a real estate purchase.
No, I
Because
get
that's
it.
just, like, you're
It'll
in
drive
real
it
estate,
right
you
up.
know, of course.
But it can sit there because I don't feel we should overpay for it either.
No, but it definitely would be a nice boon for the city to have that property. Just in my opinion.
So Mark, what,
I'm gonna go with the staff's recommendation.
okay, all right, okay. Vice Mayor?
I agree with staff recommendation.
I agree also.
Okay, all right, I don't even, so with the 4.58, everything that you've talked to us about, we are able to do. If worse comes to worse and there, we do have to pay for that air conditioning, because I do not want them to sit here in that kind of heat. We would just take it out of the reserves. Correct. Okay, okay. So, you know, some of these things, when you look at, it's either, you know, what do we have to have and what's nice to have. So in my opinion, that air conditioning for our public safety, if that should break completely, would be a have-to-have. A Bank of America would be a nice-to-have. So I think we need to look at things like that. The fire truck we had to replace that, so.
Well, they keep wrecking them. It's a problem.
So if you feel like 4.58 is something that we can live with, again, I think people, I don't know why in my budget, I always do monthly increases. So $3.43. I don't really think there's anyone that's really going to complain about that. If we went up to the 4.6, that's only 30 cents more a month. I still think they're not gonna complain, but I don't wanna give that perception for $28,000. So I'm with the 4.588 as well. What else do you
In
need?
the next meeting, we'll actually bring a resolution for you to approve. The only thing left.
Did anyone have, any other questions as you were looking through
I
here?
think Lori has one more thing she
Oh,
wants.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mayor.
No, was there anything else, as you were scrolling through here? Like I noticed the change in the legal and, in a couple of different things. Any other questions as you were scrolling through that you'd say, oh, I wonder why it looks like that? Okay, if not, Lori, then go ahead.
Okay, some of the important dates is we're actually sending out, once this is all approved in the special meeting that we're having next, we actually put this through to the property appraiser's office, the Department of Revenue. And I believe it's August 18th, the property appraiser will send out your notice of proposed taxes. That's what you get in the mail. And it'll have this information along with when our first public hearing will be, which we've tentatively put that as September 8th. It's a Monday at 6 p.m. Here, Commission Chambers. And then the final public hearing would be Tuesday, September 23rd, at 6 p.m. again here at Chambers.
So this is the time, again, with sunshine, there's not a lot that we can talk about. This is one of the times in a public forum that we can ask any questions and have any discussion. So anything besides the budget, that we had anything that we want to ask our city manager, talk about, anything that we'd like to bring up, any questions?
Madam Mayor, if I may, I just want to make sure that everybody on the commission or extend the offer. We are more than happy to sit and go through the budget with each one of you. If you have questions, we'll go line by line if we need to before that. So you're not actually adopting a budget tonight. You're just setting the proposed millage rate. And then in September, you'll adopt the budget. So we have time to look at that. We've already had some adjustments that we'll bring forward in September. But I just want to make sure you're all aware, we're more than happy to do that. Just call myself or call Lori and we'll set up time. And if there's specific questions for a department, we'll need to arrange for that department head as well.
Okay. And then again, so we seem to be in agreement with the staff recommendation. So once we do the resolution this evening, then that's where it's at. If we decide in September we wanted to go any lower, we can. We cannot go any higher. Correct.
But you can add, or the budget can change, but it would have to come out of your reserves. You'd have to, change other expenses. You just can't change your millage.
Okay, so we can say, we want this paid for now and taken out of reserves.
Correct.
That's the, okay, all right. Kirk, can you give me an update, on the St. Kitts? Tell me again, or maybe Stuart can do that. So we have to go to design first. Does design have to be approved by DEP, or where are we exactly on that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have contracted with our community services structural engineer for coastal services, and he is in the process of submitting an application to the DEP for a letter of determination, or basically preliminary approval. So before we go into full design, we can get some sort of an approval, preliminary approval, if you will, from the DEP. We have had a delay because of the weather recently within the last 3 or 4 weeks in which it's been raining, and we were required to provide a survey. So the surveyor, my understanding from the engineer project manager today, is that the survey is finished, is complete, and they should have it in their offices sometime either later this week or early next week, and then they can make that formal submission to the DEP. After they make that submission to the DEP, according to state law, they have 30 days to determine whether or not it's sufficient, the application is sufficient, and then once they make that determination, they have 90 days to make a decision or issue an RAI, request for additional information.
Okay. And that 300,000, that was only the structure leading down. We had said maybe a foot wash, maybe a restroom. So that would be Would that either, again, be taken out of reserves, or we'd do an amendment, or if we decided to do that
I
later on?
believe the 300,000, correct me, city manager, as far as if I'm wrong, but I believe it would include additional things such as that as well.
Rick, do you know if that's,
It is, and if we're going to add amenities, there may be an opportunity for a county grant for that as well.
Echo?
Possibly, but they pushed the ECHO timeframe further out to January now, which would delay the construction of this. I know our citizens are hot to have this built, so it could be a pretty significant grant that would help fund a major portion of this, but it would delay it because the application isn't even until January. So, and then they usually take about 2 months to review all the applications, so funding probably wouldn't even be announced until, I'm guessing, March.
And I'm sure everyone read the announcement we got from the county that they will be even more anxious for another access to the beach with, Stuart, do you want to go over about Frank Rendon Park starting on August 11th, and it's probably going to be a 6-month?
That is my understanding, Madam Mayor. The city isn't generally involved in that.
Okay.
It's a county park, but that's my understanding, that it's starting soon and it should be about 3 months, unfortunately.
Okay, and for those people that are asking you, I did talk to Jessica Fentress today. So it's going to be August 11th, and they anticipate being through in March. And Florida Shores going over, they'll probably do that about a month before the completion. So they'll start that construction in about February or March. And that will be several months that'll be down. So any other access to the beach, that's not right?
We're surprised at that delay.
Okay. They're gonna be looking for access points to get over to the beach, so whatever we need on that. So what other questions do we have for the city manager, or anything else that we want to know, that we want to talk about within our group? Nothing else? Stephanie, do you have anything for us? Any questions?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Kurt, do you have anything else for us? Anything else going on? Okay. Well, if nobody else has any questions, thank you very much for this special meeting that we had today. I know that some people had to leave work to come to this. I think we're quite happy with the outcome. Thank you, Lori, and your staff for all the work that went into this. I mean, we just see the pages and pages of what you provided, and everything that you had up there wasn't even on these pages and pages. So thank you. I think it was very thorough. You were able to answer every question that we had. If we could have a copy of what you gave us this afternoon, I think everyone would anticipate that if they had any other questions, that might answer them. But